right, well, welcome. Good morning, everyone. We're so glad to see you. My name is Kara Hinesley. I'm the head of public policy here at Twitter Australia, and I just wanted to say welcome to Twitter. We're so glad you're here. I don't know how many of you guys have had a chance to meet the lovely Nicola Hazel over here, the director of SheStarts. A couple weeks ago, if you can believe it, I got put in touch with Nicola through Susie, our MD, and Nicola came and met with me and was like, okay, we want to do an event with Twitter. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. She was like, okay, how about we do it in 2 weeks? And I was like, okay, like we can do this, all right. And evidently, so I knew a little bit about SheStarts through Blue Chili, but I started looking at it and I realized that you guys actually pull together companies in 12 weeks. 12 weeks. I mean, usually I can barely, get through a workout program for 12 weeks or stick to anything for 12 weeks. And so I was incredibly impressed. And whenever I started to learn more and more about SheStarts, I realized that everything that you guys have been building and what you stand for is very similar to the same things that Twitter is looking to do. As you guys know, tomorrow is International Women's Day, which is wonderful. We always love to celebrate women. But one of the things that one of the things that the company really values is making sure that it's not just about one day, it's about every day throughout the year. And we're always trying to make sure that on the platform, not only do women have a voice, but they also feel safe to use that voice on Twitter. And so whenever we started working with SheStarts, I was like, okay, this is like sweet spot. Like, this is exactly what Twitter's all about. And so I wanted to welcome up the panel and welcome up Nicola from a Twitter perspective. And we'll get started with this amazing panel. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Kara. I mean, it is amazing to work with an organisation. Jump on up, guys. I'm going to sit in the sink with the green cushion and the rest are all up for grabs. It's amazing to work with an organisation, though, here at Twitter who are moving that fast in 2 weeks to pull together an event like this. And it is spectacular to look around the room and see all of these amazing faces of women and men coming together on this week that is International Women's Day week. As we say, it has become a week or a month or something much more. But I really want to echo what Kara just said, which is it's not about one day or even 1 week or 1 month. International Women's Day is one of those days where I have to admit I get a little bit cynical. It used to be like Christmas to me. International Women's Day was my favourite day of the year. It was a day where I saw stories that I didn't get to see every other day, where women were on the front pages for doing amazing things, where conversations were started about how we drive change. But over time, I started to worry that International Women's Day was turning into another Valentine's Day. And I said to my husband 2 years ago, don't ever buy me flowers for International Women's Day, because this day is not about cupcakes and flowers. It's about bringing together a room like this for a conversation to press that starting gun again and again and again every year to say, how do we keep moving forward? It's that call to action for gender equality. A moment when we put the spotlight on how far we have come, where we celebrate and commemorate the women who are driving change, who are pressing for progress, as is this year's hashtag, but also where we stop and say, what's still wrong? What are the barriers that still exist? What are the challenges that we still have to overcome as a society? And where we remind everyone, all of our community, men and women alike, everybody is part of a conversation about why diversity is not just a nice to have, why gender equality is not about just celebrating women one day a year, but why it is part of our future and a part of our global economic vision for a society where everybody is contributing equally and being recognised as such. And here we are at Twitter HQ in Australia, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, where the managing director is a phenomenal woman. It's Susie Nicoletti. Please put your hands together for Susie. A great example example of women in leadership in the tech space, and somebody who I was very grateful to get to know last year when we were working together on the Women's Agenda Leadership Awards, again celebrating and looking at and shining a spotlight on women who are making a difference in the world. Two other women who are definitely making a difference in the world as entrepreneurs, as champions of their businesses, of the issues that they're trying to solve in the world, and also as leaders and supporters of so many other women, are sitting next to me right here. Kelly Slessor, who is the CEO and founder of ShopU, just launched 3 weeks ago after a long road there. Please put your hands together for Kelly. And very, very proud for me to be able to introduce you to Dr. Claire Jenkins, the CEO and co-founder of VetChat, one of our phenomenal alumni from the very first SheStarts cohort, who I first met in 2016. And look how far you've come, Claire. Thanks for joining us on the panel today. So these women, when I think about the concept of International Women's Day this year, and I think about the ideas of pressing for progress and how we shine a light on success and on change, and I think about progress, this is what I think about. I think about women saying, yes, I can. I have an idea. It's a bold idea to change the world, to launch a company, to step into a field that is traditionally very much a male-dominated field. The statistics we all know, and if we don't, that women make up around 1 in 4 startup founders, and for those who actually access venture capital, the funding to grow and scale and rapidly become the Twitters of the future, it's as low as 5% of that funding that goes towards women-led companies. These are the kind of companies, though, that are changing the ratio, that are changing the numbers, and that are starting to see that shift. So we're very fortunate today to be able to have a conversation about how do you do that? And not just how do you become a founder in a male-dominated space, but how do you become a founder in an environment that says, unless you can code, unless you're a computer programmer and follow that traditional trajectory of the Mark Zuckerberg story from the university dorm room to the global tech company, that you can't become a tech founder. And these women are all examples that, in fact, you can be a leader, a CEO of a tech company, and not have to fit a classic stereotype and not have to rely on one set of skills. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning, breaking through what I like to call the coded ceiling. There's the glass ceiling, and then there's the one that has code on it as well. So we're breaking through that here today, and we are joined by some incredible people to talk about how you do that. So we know, though, that the data is still the challenge, the fact that the ratio is still skewed out. For each of you, can you share with us, as we get started in the conversation, genuinely what you see are the biggest triggers or levers we can pull to change the ratio, to have more women leading companies, just like the three of you are? I might kick off with you, Susie.
Okay, good morning. Bringing about change, there's so much that goes into this, and from our perspective, I think one thing for me is the ability for companies to listen to their employees and to be flexible, to make meaningful changes that actually encourage and support their development. And this can be women, yes, but this can be men, this can be parents, this can be non-parents, this can be anyone that needs support. Really, it's on, I believe, the company to listen to their employees to make the right changes to continue supporting growth. So one example we'll talk about that's special and unique a little bit to this office here is our parental leave policy. So we have quite a few sales people in this office, and what we found is we've captured top talent at a time in their life where a lot of people are taking parental leave, both men and women, and quite a few, triple the normal ratio of elsewhere in Twitter. And so we stepped back and we looked at this opportunity, and we created a flex culture for this office that would enable both men and women to make the right choices about what was the right amount of time in and out of the office for themselves. So the flex culture was really important to us. Twitter as a business also offered 20 weeks fully paid parental leave to both men and women.
And we've made a focus to make sure that the men actually take that. We want to debunk the stereotype that having kids is up to the women 100%. So men in this office, you also get 20 weeks, and it's a mandate that they at least take 8 when the child is born. And what we had was our senior leaders, even though we had a transitional year for the company, took it. So our Asia Pacific head of finance and operations both took this full paid parental leave as males, one of which was actually promoted upon coming back. So I think, again, the idea about listening and rewarding employees for actually building equality is a big one for us. And I think some of the results I was speaking with Nicola about that we're really proud of, one is that we have a policy that both men and women utilize. Secondly, that we have had promotions for people on parental leave. I was actually promoted 5 months pregnant to managing director, so that the company is in fact rewarding us. And I think the last thing for us is we're continuing to make sure that men and women are in fact equals on this parenting journey, and we support each of them as they move forward.
Such a phenomenal story. The idea that you never hear it. You want to hear more of this, but when I first caught up with Susie and she said to me I was 5 months pregnant when they promoted me to managing director, and they let me split my maternity leave with half of it up front and some of it later because that's what worked for me. And then she talked about a male colleague who was promoted while on parental leave. My jaw dropped. You just don't hear that very much. But it makes a difference, because why wouldn't you keep amazing talent by making your policies and your practices work, making things work for people? Claire, what do you think are the things that are making things work for women in this space, and the way that we can continue to drive it to see more women following in your footsteps?
I think just by shining a light on it, so that other women can see other females doing things that they may want to do. And certainly that's what helped me take the plunge from veterinarian to running Vet Chat. And I just think that's really important. So the importance of shining a light, and if people can really see it, then they know that they can do it too.
I mean, it's a big leap, right? We've talked about it a lot of times, this idea that you saw a problem in your industry as a vet for 13 years and made the jump from clinic to tech startup founder. And it took you a while to make that jump, didn't it? But for you, what were the things that made you believe, actually, I can make that jump and I can solve this problem and become a tech startup founder?
For me, it was, I had the idea for a number of years, and people getting sick of hearing about it, actually. And I just sort of thought someone else would do it. And this is going to sound a bit ridiculous, but it's actually having my second child, my son. I was going on maternity leave, so I finished working as a vet, and I thought, this is the best time to do it. I've always wanted to do it, I'm going to do it now. It's not actually the best time to do it when you're about to have a baby, but just the fact that I could see that I had more space, more time. I don't know that it would have been easy for me as a veterinarian to just quit and say, no, I'm just doing this startup that I believe in, that I'm passionate about. So I think for me, the maternity leave was the key, because I thought, I've got all this time, I can work on this now.
And thank goodness you did. Kelly, what about for you? I mean, when you had worked for 18 years as a digital marketer and said, you know what, I'm going to launch this company using those skills, but going into the tech industry, what for you helped you make that leap?
I think a few things. I think, having female mentors around me, and I think that's one of the things that we do need to change, is for us as women to mentor more women, to give them the confidence to go out there and do their own thing, or be the top of the corporate ladder, or be on a board, whatever it might be. And having those strong women in my life that kicked me and said, you know what, just get on with it. Andrea's one of those ones that kicked me with her very nice shoes. I'll never forget, we were sat in a park. I've got to tell the story. We were sat in a park, and I think I was going to the park with my youngest, who was about 2 then, and I called Andrea and I said, look, I've got this issue, I'm starting this business, I really need to talk it through. And she's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm in DY Park. Right, I'll be there. I'm on the way to an event. So she turns up to this park in her Prada heels, and she says they weren't Prada, but I think they were. Anyway, she looked amazing. She's had her hair all blow-dried, and there's snotty little kids running around pouring at her. And I just sat down and had this open, frank conversation with her and said, look, this is where I'm at. And she gave me a real butt kicking and said, this is what you need to do. So I think to change the industry, we need more women to mentor more women and to butt kick more women, basically, into going after what they believe in. I think the second one for me is quotas at a recruitment level. So not at a board level, because I don't ever want to be a token woman on a board. I don't ever want to be the token woman that gets a seat at a table because they're trying to fill a quota. However, I recognise that we all have unconscious bias. If you look at a lot of the boards around the country, if you look at a lot of the senior tables around the country, there will be a white middle-aged man surrounded by white middle-aged men, because there's that unconscious bias. We gravitate towards people who are like us, who look like us, who talk like us, who act like us, and it's not conscious. And I believe that if that unconscious bias is taken away at the recruitment level, so if diversity is put in front of you when you're actually interviewing for a job, I think it removes some of that unconscious bias.
And I mean, these are some of the factors that are looked at right across industries, right? I mean, we know that gender equality in leadership is not just an issue for tech, but it's particularly acute in tech. The statistics don't lie in that space. But when we start to think about, well, what are actually the skills that we need to drive great companies, we're starting to realise that that pattern of what has been consistently put in place isn't necessarily what is creating the great global companies that will be sustainable for the future. And that's where a lot of the conversation has gone. I mean, Susie, when you think about being the leader of a tech company here in Australia and working with your colleagues around the world, you're obviously not the programmer sitting at the top of the company. What do you see as the skills that are fundamental in your industry that women and men should be bringing to the table?
Yeah, so my team loves hearing this story. We're going to do it. My first job out of school was renting cars. I rented cars for 3 years. And ironically, I grew up in San Francisco Bay Area, so I did want to go into tech. I did have a job as a technical writer, but I graduated in one of many dot-com busts. So one of the only companies hiring was a car rental company where I rented cars to celebrities. I'm going to fast forward the whole story. We could do the whole hour on the celebrity car stories, but in the end of this crazy journey, it set me up, because when the economy picked back up, Google at the time was looking for people with complicated client experience, and I had plenty of that. So I remember I went to these interviews and I talked about cars that were the wrong color that we had to send to Mexico for particular celebrities, or this, that, or the other. And it actually helped me land my first job at Google. So if I think about how I made my way, tech is exciting. Tech's an opportunity. Things are changing so quickly. And I think there's so many women that are actually really uniquely positioned to capitalize. So the things for me that were helpful is one, putting my hand up every time there was an opportunity. There's lots of in tech, things change so quickly. So when there was an office opening in San Francisco, I put my hand up, or Sydney, I put my hand up. Or when I saw an opportunity to launch a vertical, I put my hand up for that as well. And I think with tech, with fast-moving companies, you can capitalize by continuing to kind of put your hand up. The second thing is, I think, tech is great, but you don't always have that legacy loyalty customer that's been with you for 20 years. They've been with you for 2 hours, and they're happy to go elsewhere if someone else has something more interesting than you do. So it really means that the skills that differentiate are people that can move fast and make it happen and always come up with solutions. And I think that's a great opportunity for women. We are multitaskers, we take on challenges, we're constantly problem solving. And for me, always figuring out how to find a solution. When I know every day I'm gonna wake up and at least 20% of what comes through my inbox is gonna take up my day, even though it's not planned. Those are the things that we look for, those are the things we hire for. And we have over 50% females in this office because they're exceptional at this.
For you, when you took the leap from veterinarian to startup, did you have apprehension about how am I going to do this? Can I talk the tech? And what have you learned about actually what you bring to your business that adds the greatest value?
Well, I think my greatest asset is that I am a veterinarian. So it's through being passionate about pet health and really feeling the problem that we're solving. And obviously that industry experience is really important to being able to communicate the vision and drive the business. So I think that is the greatest asset. Obviously, for me, it's also important to getting a bit of tech literacy. So I do need to be able to talk to and manage tech teams, but I don't need to be able to do it myself.
Because there are so many other skills that are actually more crucial to your leadership. What are the skills you think that are the ones beyond your expertise in your field that get you through the challenges that arise every day in building a company?
I think being resilient and not getting too bogged down in the problems, and just being able to see for what it is and keep moving, keep progressing. And communication, I think, is really, really important in an early stage company, to be able to communicate the vision, communicate with the team, and obviously also with your customers, and be able to just get out there and talking to customers every day. That's really important for them, yeah.
Kelly, for you, when we talk about, whether or not you have to have a tech co-founder to start a tech company, and there is still a narrative out there that investors won't invest in a company if they don't have the tech co-founder in there, if they don't have the hacker on the team. And obviously the SheStarts program at Blue Chili is all about showing that we're looking for entrepreneurs with brilliant ideas to solve great problems, to get through that barrier of tech, so that 93% of our population who don't code are not cast out of this really exciting part of our economy, and we're seeing the successes in doing that. And Kelly, you are another example of the success of starting a company without a tech co-founder. Do you think that there is a role to consider about the fact that many of the consumer tech platforms, things like Canva and WordPress, as well as, I guess, the freelance platforms like Upwork, are enabling non-technical founders to build their tech companies the way that you have?
Absolutely, and Canva's one of my most used, and Upwork two of my most used platforms. We use them all the time, and I think as tech evolves and it becomes simpler to use and simpler to add plugins and simpler to, engage with technology, I think we'll see it. We'll see that the change happen, that we won't need the technology skills. I actually started life as a technical product manager. So I sat in between sales and development teams, and what I did was I translated what development had built to sales so they could sell it, and I translated to development what sales needed so that they could build it. So I kind of was this hybrid. They used to call me either the back-end girl or half marketing, half geek, because I sat somewhere right in between. And I think one of the things that I've taken with me over time is it's actually not about the technology. It's actually about creating emotional engagement. It's actually about the consumer at the end and the problem you're trying to solve. So even now, although I do understand the technology and I understand, yesterday we were talking about Apache servers and stuff like that, which I've actually not got a lot of interest in, but I need to kind of understand it to know what they're building out in terms of the architecture and make, I suppose, valid decisions around that. But, what I go back to whenever I'm talking to technical people is what's the customer statement. So recently we've just done a whole product roadmap for the next year. And in that product roadmap, every single piece of technology that we're building has got a customer statement next to it. And if it doesn't have a customer statement and a reason as to why we should be building it, then it makes no sense to me. Now, obviously, server and architecture and things like that, that's still about the customer, right? That's still about making sure that you can have multiple users getting a great experience at the same time. So it just comes back to the customer statement.
It's interesting, when we were in San Francisco with the first SheStarts cohort in the middle of last year, and I should actually ask all of the SheStarts alumni and current cohort in the room, please put your hands up and a big hi hello to all of them. There are amazing founders here in the room today. Make sure you have a chat to them. So our new cohort are preparing for their trip to San Francisco in June once they've launched and built their products with us and got their businesses ready to go with us over to the throbbing heart of Silicon Valley tech. Claire came with us last June, and when we were over there, we were visiting these big global tech companies. It became really apparent to all of us that the conversations we were having with the experts and leaders in these companies were exactly the same as the conversations we're having back here in the offices at Blue Chili with all of the advisors and mentors and the team there about how do you think about your customer first. That no matter how big you are or how small you are, that has to be at the centre of what you do. I mean, Susie, when we look at Twitter, at this massive company, this huge tech juggernaut, incredibly influential, surely the customer is still something that comes back to every single day. And how do you think about ensuring that engineers are thinking about the customers and the roles of different people to make that a reality?
Yeah, so I think for us, we are absolutely customer first, and that's always been my big thing back from the rental car days. You have to solve for the customer. I think what's really exciting about Twitter as a platform, it was essentially set up as a place to communicate instantly and without barriers. It didn't have a particular set roadmap. It was really for the people, by the people. And as we've seen evolutions happen, it's really about consumers driving its adoption and usage. So what's great about Twitter is it's actually a real-time feedback tool for us as a business. And that's why you see so many things we launch and we do on the platform. We actually source feedback and continue to make the right changes for this market and for our global market as well. So I think it's exciting at the moment. We understand people like to live stream. We see the usership on that, so that's going to be a core focus for this market. We realize that video is big and unique in Australia. We notice that there's more mobile video adoption here than anywhere else, so that's a core focus in everything that we're doing. And we're also excited to see other partners like Airbnb. They actually use Twitter now. I don't know if anyone saw this. Brian Chesky sent out a tweet and he's like, what do you guys want from Airbnb? What's the next iteration? This was only about 6 to 8 weeks ago. He just put it out on Twitter, and in his head he had thought it would be a particular like prices, but it was really gyms and different unique access parking, things he hadn't really thought through. And he took that real-time feedback and live streamed just last week that he announced a Superhost program, and over 200,000 people came to watch that live stream of his announcement. So for us, we're using the platform, we're constantly listening, and we're actually working with brands to do the same, to make changes.
Susie, can I ask, when we think about the tech industry, you talk through having come through Silicon Valley for years, some of the biggest tech companies all the way over to here in Australia, and we think about the bro culture, the conversation that is historic in tech and has had a spotlight, really shone on it in the last 12 months. Where do you see the challenges still exist in overcoming that culture, and where do you see the pockets of light?
Yeah, so I've worked in a lot of different teams with a lot of different mentalities. So back in Silicon Valley days, yes, there was the beautiful engineering building, and then the sales team had this really crap building like way down the road. And they were very much isolated. And yes, I've worked on teams with 23 men where I'm the only woman, or there have been reorgs, multiple, and I've been, one of 3 women that actually emerged as a leader. I think the pocket for me, I have seen change. So going back to, again, the whole isolated buildings piece, I know that team is now integrated. I actually know that the engineering team sits with the sales team, they go to the consumer, and it's a one-team solution. So that has actually changed. Going back to the example of being one of 4 women, that team when I left was an even 50-50. So I genuinely have seen change. It starts from the top. It does, and it takes time, because I do think it takes time to understand the challenges we're solving for, not trying to solve for too many, but really picking what we can win, getting the right people around you to figure out how you can impact change, and then making sure it's seen all the way through.
So when we talk about it starting at the top, Claire, you know, you're at the top of your small company, but you've got a male co-founder and you're the CEO and you've got to lead that team. When you started out VetChat, did you ever have any apprehension about being that CEO, and what's that journey been like for you as an emerging leader?
Yeah, I definitely did. I actually wanted to do all of the roles and work that I needed to do, but I actually would have preferred to not be called the CEO, which is a bit ridiculous. But so obviously I've grown in that confidence and I'm very proud to be the CEO, and obviously now I realise, well, it has to be me. But it did, the fact that I was willing to do the work but hide behind someone else, yeah, answers that question, I think. So yeah, it's hard to overcome.
What's changed? How did you overcome that?
I think with what Kelly was saying before about female mentors, I didn't touch on that, but that was actually huge for me as well. So I think just, you know, being able to speak to people and get advice and just really take ownership and not be afraid. So just, you know, as a veterinarian, my reputation is everything, obviously, and to then be going and doing something else that you don't necessarily know exactly what you're doing, learning new skills absolutely every day. It was just quite scary. It felt a bit out of my control. Perhaps I'd been a little bit too controlling before, but getting that support really was the key in me, taking the jump and then taking ownership of leadership too.
So if we are here to celebrate amazing women, are there some individuals that you would point to that have helped you on that journey in taking those steps to start and then to keep going?
Yeah, definitely Colette from Blue Chili's, a good friend of mine, and really, you're really the reason that I took the jump. And also, you know, you were questioning why I wouldn't be leading outwardly, why I would be happy to hide behind something else, and I hadn't really thought about it in that way. So absolutely, it was you.
Yeah. It's really amazing for all of us at the team at Blue Chili to be working in an organisation that has such phenomenal female and male leaders. And our Chief Innovation Officer in Colette has been the champion behind SheStarts even beginning, alongside Seb, our CEO, who says hi from Singapore today. And really seeing more women like Claire come into our portfolio has changed us as a company. It's changed the way we do things. It's changed the structure of how we do things. We were having a conversation the other day. I was asked on a panel, how do you do things differently to support women in your program? And every other panellist was saying, oh, we don't really do anything differently to engage with people from diverse backgrounds in our programs. It's just about ensuring that we are. And my answer was, we do everything differently. And not because women have special needs, but because we simply listened to the amazing people who were coming into our portfolio. And when they said to us, you know what, I need to do school pickup so that I can make this company work. You know what, my brain stops working after 3 p.m. because I've been up since 4 a.m. with a newborn. We said, well, why do we need to do any of the accelerator program after 3 p.m? Why do we have to start at 9 every day if just a half-hour shift makes it possible to drop your kids off to school? Exactly what Susie's talking about in terms of the intentional design of a workplace for flexibility for families, for parents, for carers. How you implement that is just about listening to the people that you're working with and saying, we want the best. We want to invest in the best startups that are emerging out of Australia today. Susie wants to have a company that's got the best talent. She doesn't have to invest in going through another recruitment drive every time. And these founders want to build the best companies. So how do you design to make sure that people opt in rather than opting out? Kelly, for you, how do you and your co-founder do that?
I think we had a bit of a couple of months ago, we had a bit of a moment where we brought someone on board, and then a little bit down the track, we just realised it wasn't working. And we sat down, and someone told us it was actually too early to look at our values, because we're just startup and we're supposed to be running and all of that stuff, and it's way too early to do that kind of cultural stuff. And we went off site for a half day, and we sat down and we wrote down what our value system was. And we came up with the 5 values that were really important to us. So open honesty, boldness, getting shit done. Am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay, good. And that was number 1. Learning. So we went through those. And then the next person that we spoke to, we said, how do you feel about those values? How do you live and breathe those values? And if you don't, that's okay, because you are you, and you don't have to live our values, but we really want to understand. And actually has made a massive shift in the conversations we're having, and the people that we're engaging with, and the people that are helping us with our business and helping us to grow it, just by really being clear about the skill set and the value system that we hold.
So, I mean, what we're hearing here is that to build a great tech company takes an incredible culture, brilliant communication skills, an ability to build and lead a great team, and a real passion and expertise in the field that you're working in. None of these things say you need to be an expert coder sitting in a dark room wearing a baseball cap and a pair of sneakers on a Saturday night. None of these things are the typical stereotypical picture of what we say a tech company looks like. This is what a tech company in 2018 looks like. Incredible, phenomenal founders and leaders who are driving change. I want to open up the room to questions, because I am sure there are many of you out there who have a million questions for the people on the stage. We are happy to share the microphone around so you all know. Say hello to everybody on Periscope on Twitter who is following around, which is why we'd like to use the mic so that they can all hear your questions. But if you've got a question, and we have one at the back there, I might give that microphone and then we'll share this one. Stand on up, tell us who you are. Are you a startup founder? Are you from Australia's leading corporates? What's your background? Who are you?
Hi, I'm Becky Dawson. I work at Disney here in Australia. So my question for you guys is more so around, as you look at the trends in Australia and New Zealand, because lots of us also work with them, what are some of the things that you think are the most innovative and impactful and things you're watching across your businesses that you could share with us and speak to, and you think, you know, one to watch over the next couple of years?
Kelly, how about you go first?
I love this topic. I love watching trends. I'm a trend junkie. So one of the things I do is I analyse the App Store every day. I look at trending apps. I look at what users are saying, what they love, what they hate. I read reviews intensely. So one of the social platforms that peaked last week was the one called Vino. Last week, one of the biggest climbers in the App Store was the Calm app, followed by the government one, followed by job seekers. So we're all looking for jobs, trying to stay calm and working out if we get some benefits when we lose our jobs, apparently. That's what I read from that. One I follow in the US, and I think the CEO was here yesterday, is an app called Lemonade. I think they are pushing the boundaries. It's an insurance application. It's disrupting a 3,000-year-old industry. They're using chatbot functionality, they're using artificial intelligence, they're using everything that we should be using going forward. So I watch them very closely. I also take a lot of inspiration and innovation from Scott Galloway, who is a futurist leader in the retail industry as well. He's amazing.
If you don't get the Scott Galloway, just chime in here. The L2 newsletter that Scott puts out is incredible.
Fantastic.
He is a professor at NYU Stern. He started his own company, but very, very insightful, and yeah, Disney Plus.
And I think we need to look at other industries. So I look to, although I'm in retail, I look to insurance, I look to health, I look to the sports industry to see what's working, because the users are the same people. We're all talking to the same people. So if there's things in other industries that are working really well, I try and understand why they're working well.
Where do you look? I was going to say, I was going to pass it to Susie. I thought that would be more insightful. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, look to what's happening in human health space, and chatbot functionality, artificial intelligence, and obviously video, which we're not doing at all, but I think that that's obviously really big as well. That's why I think Susie might be a bit better to talk.
It's a lot of pressure. We should talk about video though after. So we do look to Twitter. We listen to our customers. That's the biggest thing. I love the macro trends and reports. I love, understanding what's happening on Twitter. It's the customers, and again, always continuing to think and solve for the challenge in interesting ways. I think what we've seen is kind of a surge in terms of brands and consumers want to be a part of what's happening by live stream, right? So again, going back to the Airbnb example, actually streaming the news direct, controlling that message, taking real-time feedback in the moment when they have something to say or a big announcement. Or it's Mardi Gras last weekend, which I also streamed online, and we had ANZ Bank actually inserting their messaging as a part of that live action. So I think what we're seeing kind of a surgence as brands are becoming more interested in becoming their own broadcasters of their own messages and stories, which is one. And then also to the chatbot space, we are seeing brands wanting that one-on-one engagement as well, and taking a consumer into a direct message platform.
It's that whole idea, isn't it, that innovation isn't a thing that you buy, it's action that is being taken. And you can see pockets of innovation in so many different places and look for inspiration. There are all of the messaging communications boards around great newsletters that come out, people who are great thought leaders. Sometimes I think, though, we see the greatest innovation in moments in an individual's mind as they come up with something incredibly new. And for us, that's what's really exciting as well, is watching entrepreneurs ask a question that hasn't been heard before, or talk about a problem that hasn't been talked about before, and how technology could be used to start solving that problem. And that's what's exciting, as we're having more and more people come into this space from such different backgrounds. We're seeing different problems being solved and different solutions being created. Australia's first online vet service, for example, an amazing innovation in pet healthcare, an incredible opportunity for us to look what we're doing. Shop You, which is transforming the way that we actually shop online. I mean, you can go on there and it'll tell you what you're looking for. It will actually tell you what you're looking for. How much better does that make your life? Amazing innovations like this that we're seeing in front of us all the time. And absolutely, it's interesting to think about the way that collaborations are happening in the innovation space. And I think when we think about the role of women leading in tech, this is one of the things I see a lot of, is more collaboration happening. Twitter spoke about ANZ and Airbnb using the platform. ANZ, along with MYOB, Microsoft, LinkedIn and Google, are phenomenal supporters and partners of SheStarts. And what we're seeing is these companies coming together to look at how they drive their messaging, their engagement with their customers and their communities by leveraging technology and phenomenal platforms like Twitter. So that collaboration piece is starting to get more and more exciting, where innovations take it to another level because of the way they're working together. We have another question up the back there.
Hi, my name's Amy. I'm a graduate at Macquarie Group. I'm going to ask for a bit of career advice. Maybe if there's something that you can share when you were just starting out in your tech careers. Is there something that you wish you did more of or less of? I'd love to hear it. Thank you.
There's a quote at Shop You that we're kind of living and dying by at the moment, and it's on our material, and it's no one is your power. Sorry, no one. I've forgotten it. No one is you, and that is your power. And I wish I could tell my 21-year-old self that.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think it's just to not be afraid, and to feel really passionate about something, to absolutely take the leap.
I think for me, it's to get a good, diverse group of people around you supporting you in your career. In honesty, in my 20s, I surrounded myself with like-minded people who gave me very similar advice, and I wasn't able to grow. I really kind of did the same thing and stayed in the same mindset. And for me, it took actually a missed promotion to realize I need to think bigger. I need to make sure that people advising me aren't just my friends, but are people that are different than me, men and women, in different countries with different backgrounds. So I would say, my advice is to start really building your board and get multiple personal perspectives on how you want to grow.
Consistent advice for life, right? That you need to have an interesting and diverse group of people around you. We've got a question in the front here from Catherine. While the microphone's being brought up, the other thing, we were having a conversation actually at UTS the other day, our friends from UTS, and we were talking about people, what's the advice you give to your 18-year-old self? Where do you think you need to consider the start of your career where you're going to make an impact? And it was interesting reflecting on this and thinking about the fact that when you look at any of the people on the panel here, and probably most of the women in the room over 30, when they started out their careers, they would not necessarily have had any idea that they'd be where they are today. I started out as a journalist. I certainly didn't think I'd be running a tech accelerator. The role that I have didn't exist until 3 years ago. So it's that idea of just being where you want to be, finding those things that you're passionate about, challenging yourself with people, with opportunities, and keeping that open mind about the future, because we didn't know there was going to be a future where 140 characters could define your day when I was studying at university. And it's now gone up to more than 140 characters, which I'm very grateful because I like words. So thank you for that, Twitter. Catherine, your question.
Hi, I'm Catherine West. I'm on the board of Nine Entertainment and a SheStarts advisor.
Which we love.
My question is to Kelly and to Claire. I just want to know from each of you what your biggest challenges are at the moment, and if there's one thing that everyone in the room could do to help you, what would it be?
At the moment, it's brand awareness. So it's letting people, we want to be in pet owners' minds at the time that they're having a problem, so that they use us at that time. So I would love you all to get onto the website. I would love, which is vetchat.com.au. Follow us on socials. My email is claire@vetchat.com.au. I'd love to hear from all of you. I'd love you to let your friends and family know that it exists. And I think the more people that we've just got going through it and that word of mouth, it's going to be the best for us. So it's really just pet owners.
I've got a few challenges, so I'll go with the main one. So our challenge at the moment is we have built the platform. We're getting great feedback from the industry, but we're very much at the start of our journey. So now what we need to do is make sure we deliver on the promise, which is providing a shop for each and every one of you that is personalised to you, that actually saves you time. And to do that, we need to continue to build out, get as much feedback as we can possibly get on what we're doing. So I suppose our challenge is having people around us that can run faster than we can, and with that comes investment. So they're our two main challenges.
So big challenges, but ones that I have a feeling there's plenty of people in this room that can help with. And I think that's where we talk about how everybody lifts each other up. It's the rising tide. And I can also speak as a user of VetChat to the value of getting advice when you need it from a veterinarian and not having to spend $500 on an overnight visit that was probably just resolved with a little bit of love and care at home for my fur baby. So thank you very much to Dr. Claire. Do we have another question in the room? Right here we have one. Fantastic, the microphone's on its way. Thank you so much to the team.
Thanks, ladies. Really insightful what you're sharing today. My name's Kerry. I'm the MD and co-founder of Mums & Co. We help mums in business thrive. And Nicola, amazing and quite scary statistic that you mentioned before around, 5% of capital going to women-led teams. How can we shift that? How can we start, increasing the dialogue around this massive gap in financial knowledge and financial investment? Would love to hear your thoughts. thoughts there?
What I might do is go first to two women who are accessing capital, looking for investment, growing their businesses, to what you're seeing is helping and hindering that process.
I think it's partly a confidence thing. I think it's partly us asking for what we need, as opposed to, waiting or having and feeling comfortable with having conversations around money. Because I know for me, when I started out on this journey, I did not feel comfortable or confident asking for money or having a conversation around investment. I think being seen and being involved in more things like this, I think is only going to help give us that power and confidence to ask for the investment that we need. I've seen pitches that are 3 pages long that ask for $20 million that are an idea in somebody's head, and they've got it. Like I sit there sometimes and I go, we've built up this amazing platform and we're pitching really hard, and you know what? The difference between that and us then was confidence. It was the ability to stand up and just ask the question and be confident that you deserved to get that.
Confidence is the same for me, and also being able to really define what you need and why. And I think even not asking for less than you need, because I actually think that is worse in the long run. And I think that it is just that learning of how to talk money and have the confidence behind you.
Susie, in Silicon Valley, you've seen the slow shifts around investment in women-led companies. What do you see as the drivers for that change?
I think anytime anyone's asking for money, so I ask for money too. We're far away from HQ. That is a big part of my job, is being influential to the US and to Singapore. We're regionalized to make sure we have the right resourcing, the right products, the right finances, etc. And for me, I think it is the confidence, but it's the story. What is the story? How can I get people telling my story when I leave? And that for me is really it. It's that impression of a good story that people can get their mind around and then tell to each other once I go away.
The power of storytelling, right? It's such a powerful component in any business in driving success. And I think the one other thing to think about in terms of how do we change this investment landscape, it's not about fixing women. There's nothing wrong with any of these phenomenal founders on the stage or the other women going out there and pitching for venture funding and not getting it. But there are two things. There haven't been enough women getting to that point where they're going and pitching, where they're going and getting that capital and building the confidence and believing that they can get there, because there haven't been many lighting the path before them. So seeing more women come through that pipeline, get to that stage, and then when they are there, addressing unconscious bias and addressing pattern matching. This fact that investors, when we know that the majority of investors around the world in venture capital are men, we need to get more women in there as investors, which means amazing executives, leaders in our industries moving into venture funding and out of private equity into that space as well. But then thinking about, even when you don't have women sitting around the table, how do we have a conversation that demonstrates the value of companies that don't look like every company they've ever invested in before? If all the companies that have been invested in by VC in the past have been driven by the same kind of guys, we need to start finding those examples of businesses that are succeeding, driving results, demonstrating that, working with investors that get it, and then telling the world, these companies are the companies you want to be investing in because they're going to be around, they're going to succeed, and the data shows us women-led firms are driving better returns. So the more we have that conversation, the more we can start to shift the mindsets as well around investment. We have another question up here up the front. It's a great question. Thank you, Carrie.
Hello. First, I want to thank you guys for coming here, spending your time to share your wisdom. I'm very, very grateful and I'm learning a lot. I think from hearing you all talk, I can tell that you guys are all brave, confident and strong women, and that's something that I highly admire. What I would like to learn is is on the topic of leadership. So in terms of teamwork, I know there's a stigma of when women want to take the charge or take the lead, we can kind of be slapped with the label of being bossy, of being, you know, having that being mistaken for, you know, assertiveness being mistaken for bossiness. So how do you overcome that challenge to not only, I suppose, garner respect over likability and, I suppose, still get the job done? I'd say get the job done, and
That is a great question, and it is a fantastic final question, I think, for us to end on. How do we be leaders in a world that says leadership looks like something very different? What do you think, Kelly?
I don't think I've answered that question myself yet. I've got to be honest, I'm still working on it. I think, you know, I surround myself with very diverse people. It's something I pride myself on. You know, my mentors, the people around me are all from different backgrounds, you know, male or female, it doesn't matter, different ages, and I take inspiration from all of them. You know, I have my mentors that are the ones that kick me every now and again. I have my mentors that are my teachers that I learn from. One of my mentors is Gavin White, who's head of data science for Deloitte. And every time I'm in a room with him, I come away and I have to Google everything he says because he's super, super smart. And I never understand, but I always learn so much from him. And I think it is, you know, getting to that place of confidence is about surrounding yourself with people that, well, for me, it's smarter than me.
Yeah, it's really hard. And it's an absolute balance. Once was called Sydney aggressive, and I don't think I'm aggressive at all. But and that was just by communicating what I needed. So I don't know the answer either, but I think just keep self-learning. I've got to surround myself with the right people, personal coaching, and I think that it is a fact that if I was just really aggressive all the time, I'm probably not going to achieve what I need. So it's just a balance, and I haven't found it, but I will.
So I had a little bit of a journey. I know I mentioned I used to surround myself with people like me, and I used to have teams that were very like-minded. So I had to learn the hard way that was not the way to success. I drove us all kind of into the ground, all trying to compete over each other, and I had to learn diversity with some of my earlier teams. So now our leadership team is 50% men and women from 4 different countries, and that can make for some very interesting conversations, but the conversations we need to keep growing. And sometimes we don't always get to action, but I think having leadership that's willing to take that risk, that's willing to have kind of the diverse perspectives, I think is important. And in terms of it being successful, it's shared vision. It's that everyone knows where you're going and is bought into that and will get there. And the other thing is performance. As long as the numbers are in, that's what helps flex happen. That's what helps diversity happen and diverse opinions.
Brilliant answers that in some ways are not answers. It's a journey. I think, you know, that's the reality. A lot of the reason why we come together for International Women's Day, the reason why we have these conversations in our offices, in our homes, in our communities, is because we haven't found the silver bullet yet. We haven't adjusted the expectations of society yet to say that leadership from women can be done differently. And women are still getting criticised for being too aggressive. And anyone who knows Claire, aggressive? No, not at all. Asking what you want for is what we're told to do. But how do you do that in a way that people will still find you to be a nice girl? Let's change it. With time, finding the right people who aren't looking at you through that lens, showcasing the successes that happen in that place, pushing for this ongoing progress. As we sit here today on the eve of International Women's Day, my message to everybody here, and the message that's been very clear from this panel, is every single day we need to be working on this and working together to get to a point where gender equality can be achieved. We know that the numbers suggest it's decades, even centuries away. But every single individual that steps up, that puts their hand up, that says, I've got a question to ask, I've got a business to lead, I've got an idea to pursue, and I'm going to help others get there, is helping us to make that change happen. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. Please put your hands together for this phenomenal panel of amazing women. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed it. And it's been great to get the insights of each of you. Thank you for making the time to join us. To everyone here in the room who has come along, please stick around. There's still some more amazing breakfast with huge thanks to Susie, to Cara, to Lauren, to the entire team here at Twitter who have put this event together, yes, in record time, and it's been spectacular. Please join us, chat to any of us. We've got a number of people here from the Blue Chili SheStarts team. We've got an amazing group of founders from the first and second cohort, a number of our phenomenal advisors who've joined us and continue to support and champion this program, and people from across our corporate partner network as well. This is a conversation that we're going to keep having every day, and next International Women's Day we're going to look at how far we've come and the leaps that we still need to take. We're going to hold ourselves accountable to action, and that's what it's all about. So thank you very much to everybody for joining us.